Okay, so we start Torah Beis. Loshen Rabbein Zechir Levrochav. Yem Hashem al Moshe, Emor HaKohanim, Bnei Aharim, Imat Alayim, Lenefesh, Leitama Ba'amav. Iso B'Sifre Ditznuse, which is Perik Beis, which is part of Zoya Trimad of Kifayin Zayin. So he says,
forget, I'm sorry.
Menikve de Fadaske, Mushach Richo de Chayel Nimshiche. So nukve turns, okay, it's a makabel, but nukve, the padaske. The padaske is a terminology for certain sar.
What does it say there? What's the English translation? Nukva de pardaska. Oh, it doesn't even
translate
here.
it. Right. Right. Padaske is a certain sar, like a certain level. So
sar?
that a sar,
like a malach of some sort.
Yes, but not a malach. It's a level. There's a padaske. Is one of a melech has under him. One of them would be padaske. I'm not sure which this is. So Moshach Rucha, the Ruach, the Chayim, the Mashiach. So the Ruach HaChayim from Mashiach comes from Nukve de Padaske, a certain level. So he's going to explain it. Iker Kleizeinish Zainish al Mashiach Yat Tefillah. The main weapon of Mashiach is Tefillah. Shehu Bechinas Choitem, which Tefillah is the Bechin of Choitem, a nose, smelling. Mashikosov, it's Isilosi, the Pasuk Yeshai, Isilosi Echtam Loch. So what's the translation from Isilosi? Isilosi goes from my prayer, but Echtam Loch. So Echtam Loch, the plain translation is, what the Metzidas explains, is a Arich Api, because we daven it. I know Echtam Loch that I'm Echtam is the terminology of a choitem when a person Marich Af, when a person gets upset. Yeah, the terminology being used is always that the Af, the nose of the person. When a person is really upset, like hot air coming out of the nose of the person, right? So Af will always be a translation of has to do with the nose. Arich Af or Loya Arich Api would do longer. So he says because of the Tilosi Echtam Lach, Hashem will be like Arich Af. But what he explains is that so what Reb Nachman explains that Tehillah, Tefillah, which is Tehillah, right, is Echtam Lach, is a bechina of a choitem. So he's going to explain what it is. Misham Iker Chayisoy, that's Iker Chayis of Mashiach. Chom Echamta Sheyase, all the mechamas that he would do, Chalakrisha Sheyichbish, all the conquering will be done. Hakol Misham, everything will become from the bechina from Echtam, from choitem. K'moshikosav al-Mashiach, who is Mashiach, v'harichoi beyiras Hashem. So there's certain different translations on v'harichoi beyiras Hashem. One of the translations is v'richa but one Rashi explains v'richa is the lashon of a ruach, but what the Metzidas explains v'richa is the lashon of rayach, smelling. So v'richoi beyiras Hashem. So smelling is a very fine. It's a very fine, how you call it? It's sensor. It's a very fine sensor in order to smell. So you'll be able to smell it with Yiras Hashem, before Yiras Hashem. So he says that's why Mashiach is called Varicha B'Yiras Hashem, because they're Bechinas Choitem. That's going to be the Bechinas of Choitem. V'zeh Iker Klai Zayin. That's the main Klai Zayin of Mashiach will be Tefillah. Washikosu Becharbi Ivekashti. Yaakov said, he told Yosef that I'm giving you away Shem, that I conquered Becharbi Ivikashti. So one pshat Rashi says is Becharbi Ivikashti perish Rashi Tefillah Ibakoshe. I was praying on it, and that's the way I won the war. Koshikosov, another pasuk in Tehillim, Keloi Vikashti Eftach. My betochen won't be my keshes in my rainbow. My arrow, not rainbow, my arrow in my arrow. That means my betochen doesn't come because it's v'kashti keshes. But what? Behelikim hilalni, but I'll be praying to Hashem bechinas tilosi echtam lach. With that bechin of tilosi echtam lach. So what he's pointing out is that the Klai Zayin, the weapon of Mashiach, is the weapon of Tefillah. So as he's going to explain a little bit more later, it's basically that the connection, what Mashiach will be so special, is a part of tefillah in breast of the say that a person will be walking around, Mashiach will be coming, will be like total devekus the whole time, be like praying the whole time. So that's the bechin of Mashiach, which is the bechin of tefillah. So he says, how does a person get this weapon of tefillah? The way a person gets it is through Yosef. Haine shmiras abris. Through shmiras abris, the person, the kedusha sabris, is a person is in mekabel bechinas of Yosef. Why? Koshekosev chagoir charbecha al yorech. You should dress your sword on yorech. A yorech is the, how do you call it in English? That's the yorech, but yorech is also a concept where the pasuk says that a soite is a woman that cheats, yes, on her husband. She comes to the Beis Mikdash. They give it to drink from the special water, right? And then what happens? Yarech, one of this, you swear before, you said lampil yorech. So yorech it's another way of saying shmiras habris. Yorech will sometimes mean the bris of the person. Yorech by the women and yorech by the man. It's the shmiras habris. So he says, Hashem told David, from the fruits of your batten, stomach, right? That you're following, meaning to say Mashiach will be from Pri Vitnecha. The beginnas Mashiach. So it says that's the begin of Mashiach, which is the beginnas of Tefillah, the begin of Tefillah. And it says on there, Im Yishmeri Benecho Berisi, if my children will be shomer my bris heine, adai beginnas Yosef, which also be through Yosef is shomer abris, Yosef because was shomer abris, not less abchoire, he was eiget to bechoire, she beginnas avodas atfila, which bechoire is also the begin of avodas to the why, because that's beginnas pishnayim. That's the beginner from pishnayim. A bechor gets double. So what's the pishnayim? Pishnayim is tefillah. Why? Ki tefillah pishnayim. Tefillah is pishnayim. Shnayim sheyesh behem shivcha shamokim. Has two things in it. Number one, it has the shvocha shamokim. The second thing, you thank your being mishabayach Hashem. Second is sha'alas etzrochav. You ask. You beginnas cheref pefias biyodam. The pasuk says, yes, we say it every day. V'cheref pefias. That sword that sharpened on both sides. What does it mean? Beginnas shtei pias. There's two sides to it, which is beginnas pishnayim. That's the beginner of pishnayim. V'nitel mariven, and Yosef got the bechayre was taken away from Reuven. Why? That shechilal yitziyah ovav. That because he was mechal the yitziyah ovav, he took out the bed of Yaakov that was supposed to be by Bilo and put it into his mother's. So he's playing around with things that has to do with shmiras abris. Ki tolu b'shmiras abris. That's why he lost the bechayre, and Yosef was a shomer abris. He was the one who got the bris. Who he the one that got the bechina.
What does it mean to be shomer abris in that case?
In the case of Reuven, or are you talking in our case?
In case of Reuven.
Case of Reuven, the Reuven is being called as a chet. Yes, what was Reuven doing? So what happened was that as long Rachel was living, so Yaakov's bed was placed in the tent of Rachel, meaning to say that he was living mostly with Rachel, and he had another 3 wives also, but the main wife was Rachel, right? So in our translation would be the Sheikh Sisvaina will be also something who would fulfill his mission more with Rachel than with the other 3 wives. But what happened later on? when Rachel passed away. So he took his bed and placed it. Yaakov placed his bed by Bilah. And Reuven was upset on it, saying that okay, there were the two wives and there's the two shvaches, which are the two like mates. They were also like wives, but they were still a lower level. So he was claiming, okay, so as long as Rachel was alive, the main purpose why he married my mother was because of Rachel, right? He really wanted Rachel. Okay, that's fine. But later on, his main focus should be on Leah, not on Bilah. So he took out the bed from the tent of Rachel, from the Bilah, and placed it into the tent of his mother. So that was called a chet. For tzaddikim, that's called a chet, because we understand that the relationship. So we're saying. So we're saying that the begin of Leah, the whole concept of Yaakov, this relationship was actually our relationship that we have. It was much on a higher level, much so when you play around with these stuff, it's a chet.
Yaakov's relationship with Leah was on a higher level than we understand.
All the relationship, of course. The obvious wasn't just the. It's like let's give it a little example. When you take an esrog, yes, you have an esrog, yes. You come into a store and you ask for a beautiful esrog, and you look at the esrog, you go, oh, how beautiful this esrog is. So, are you actually enjoying the fruit? How beautiful the fruit is, or you look at the Ruchni's concept, which is called nice for an esrog, and that way saying, oh, that's beautiful, it's nice, it's no spots. You're not enjoying the physical part. Yes, it's physical, it's esrog, but there's something in it, something within it that you are enjoying, right? You're enjoying the concept of what the esrog is for, right? So basically, Yaakov, when we're talking about Yaakov and his wives, it wasn't in our concepts the way we look at marriage. It was much on a higher level, nothing that we can understand, but still, that Reuven takes out the bed of Bilah and places into his mother's tent. It's a chet. It's called a chet in Shmiras Abris. Although it's much on a higher understanding and a level, but still for great tzaddikim it's called a chet. But anyway, so because of this chet, so Reuven lost his bechore and Yosef got it. What's the mile of Yosef? Yosef was Shmiras Abris. What was the point of Yosef's Shmiras Abris? So we see in Egypt, right, in Mitzrayim. So he had the whole story with Potiphar. Yes, she at the Leah's Emor. She wasn't even asking to have more than just Leah's Emor. Rashi says should just be one bed together, not even having more relation than this.
Oh, just to lie down together.
Lie down together. And there was also, she saw in Ruach HaKodesh that Ima B'chitzos, she didn't know that it's referring to her daughter. So it wasn't a simple nisoyan. We talk about Yosef HaTzadik. We're not talking about a simple nisoyan that it's not our challenge that we are having. The problem is that we learn things that we learn it the way Kipshuta. It's not Kipshuta, it has a much higher and deeper understanding. Was Cheshbonis in Kabbalah exactly explaining this and that, why this should be, why it shouldn't be. And even then it was a Nisoyan. Meaning to say, because he had all these calculations, a Piruchni is why things should be this way, so he still had this Nisoyan. Anyway, so I said that Yosef was Zeiche and Reuven lost it.
Sabris, right? She was telling me that she didn't even want to like sleep with him, right? But technically, him pushing her away was considered Shomer Abris.
That was the high point, right?
Right, but Shomer Abris means that's stopping you from using your Aver to do something bad, right?
Right.
You're saying that she didn't even want to use his Aver for anything bad. So how could you say he was Shomer Abris?
And that's also, but anything referred to that, anything referred to this concept will always have to do with bris, because it always has an impact on the person's physical arisals.
Okay.
She saw about also not bad, but Deborah, she saw that have children from
Right. Right. So she was. So what he explains over here is that, in other words, so the Klai Zayin is through Yosef. So we only can get the real Klai Zayin, the real level of Tefillah is only through Shmiras Abris, and that's the Bechin of Bechoire. That's Avodas HaTefillah, right? Because Tefillah is Pishnayim. Tefillah has two parts to it. Has the part that where we are praising Hashem, and then we have what we ask from Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
So it has two parts to it. And so what he says over here now, we have in the Hagah, Baal ken Yosef b'shul shezocha lebchinas Tefillah. Yosef, because it was zocha to bechina for Tefillah, shebechinas tchilas tilosi echtam, bechinas chayes, that's the bechinas of chayes that he started off anumshach menukve de padaske, kanal al ken nikre ben poiris Yosef. That's why he got the ben poiris Yosef by the blessing ben poiris. What's ben poirat Yosef? Shebechinas tof reish peiv of oiris. But that's the beginning. Poiras is Tov Reish Peiv. Special Tov Reish Peiv of Oirish and Shiva Shemus. That's a combination of the Shem Shemus. Shem from Ein Beis, Sek, Ma, Ben, Kif Samchala, Kira Kima. That's seven Shemus. Oilim Tov Reish Peiv together is the total is Tov Reish Peiv. Shem Kabel. But that's the Shemus that are Mekabel Manuk with the Padaske. Why? Ki even Padaske is also Begamati Tov Reish Peiv. So that's a shame of Tov Reish Pevov. Now he says, Mishi zochel cherev hazeh, someone who was zoiche to this cherev.
What is this?
What do you mean?
What is this? What just happened? Everything we just read. What does any of that mean?
So he's explaining. He started off that there is nukve de padaske, is moshach riech de chayel emshiche.
Right.
So there's actually chayes that Mashiach is getting from Nukve de Padaske. So he says, in order to get this chayes, you have to be on a level of Shmiras Abris, right?
Right.
So Yosef, because he was Zeiche to Bechinas Tefillah,
Right.
so he was Zeiche to chayes that come from Nukve de Padaske.
Right.
So that's why it was called Ben Porat Yosef. What is Poiras? Poiras Tofresh Peivov. Tofresh Peivov is Padaske. Okay, the same number. One second. Before you go to Shiva Shemes, let's go to the last line. Padaske Bigamati Tofresh Peivov. Okay? So Padaske and Tofresh Peivov are the same. What's Tofresh Peivov? That's a combination of 7 Shemes. Shem Ein Beis, Shem Sak, Shem Ma, Shem Ben, Shem Kuf Samach Aleph, Shem Kuf Nin Aleph, Shem Kuf Mem Gimel. All those Shemes together, the combination reaches the number of Tov Reish Peivov. Calculate Ein Beis, Samach Gimel.
No, I got the calculation part. Well, what are these? What does it mean?
Oh, what are all these Shemes for?
What is this? Yeah.
Okay, that's very. To be honest, I don't know. I know some of it. But
It
I don't know
has
all
something
of
to
it.
do with the expansions of Yud Kei Vav Kei, right?
Shem Ein Beis has to do, yes. Shem Ma, Shem Ban, Shem Sak. These are
The last 3 I'm not familiar with.
right.
The first 4 I'm familiar with.
All those have to do, Ben. All those have to do with the Yud Kei Vav Kei. If it's Mile Yuden, Mule Hey, Mule Alfin, yeah, it has to do with that. But Kuf Sam Chalak Venakov Gilv, I don't know. But especially over here, what he's trying here, if I understand it right, is at certain levels that you reach, all these expansions of Yud Kei of Shemus, they have a Chassidus, they have an explanation. It's not only just Shemus, right? It has different functions. There's Tikkun, Ma is Tikkun, then there's different levels. Ban
Here,
is
it says,
right.
these 686 lights emanate from apertures of the nose of Arich Anpin.
Okay.
The apertures of the nose, Choitem of Arich Anpin.
Right.
Pardaska equals 686, right?
Right.
Is the root of Tarpo. That's what it's saying.
Okay.
So it has something to do with Partzufim in that case, right?
Right.
Okay, right, so we'll just leave it as is.
So it has to do with levels of Shemus, which is the Arichampen, yes, is before Tikkun, because you talk about Shema, Ban, all those Shemus are Shemus that are before Ma is already Tikkun, but they talk about Ban and the Sag, these are all Shemus that are in Arich Anpin, yes, it's the levels before and the Kesser.
So Arich Anpin is before.
Before is Eir Anpin. Atzilus is Eir Anpin. You change? No? Okay.
No, yeah, the same.
Okay.
Atzilus is
The
Zer
10
Anpin?
by 20.
What does that mean? Atzilus is Zer Anpin?
Yes.
Zer Anpin is Midas, right?
Eir Anpin is Midas. It's Elam Atzilus.
So
But I thought Midas could be in any world.
Well, yes, but Eir Anpin is always referring to Atzilus. Arich Anpin is Kesser. They call it
each of
Kesser.
these.
A Kesser is the Kesser of the Eir Anpin will be Arich Anpin. And in Arich Anpin there is also Atik. There's Atik higher. In Kesser there's two levels. So Arich Anpin there is Atik. So there's Partzufin and Arich Anpin, which are big. Arich Anpin will be called, referred to Arich, to long midas. That will be Atik, which is even higher. Netak. You're not even calling it the names.
Sorry, at that time before Matan Torah, there was Avodah Shul Bechorot.
Right.
For Esau, Yaakov also.
Right.
The question is, what was important Bechorah at that time? Because there is not Avodah for Bechorot, but there is not Matan Torah, before Matan Torah, Bechorot was not important. So
Good question, but you see Shem was also Kohen Lekel Elyon, yes? Hepti Shem was all this, yes? But why was so there wasn't the avoid of Bechore in the refer to we were doing after Matan Torah, but there's still something about serving Hashem.
yeah.
Exactly what a Bechor would be doing before Matan Torah, I'm not sure.
Sorry, I was in my mind always that in Yaakov Esau also that Esau Moharan Bechorah for a bowl of the soup.
Right,
It's
right. We
very-
learned last Torah, yeah, Torah Aleph.
And over here, Yosef לקח את הבכורה from the Reuben,
Mhm.
Reuben lost בכורה, מלכות וכהונה. Okay.
Yes, but eventually that's what came out of the Bechore. But he was saying over here is that the Bechore was beforehand, right? We're saying about Yosef was also got the Bechore. So the
Yeah.
refer to Chore, what he's referring over here is that Bechore is the beginning of Tefillah, which is a special connection. But he's also saying that Yosef, that's why it's called Ben Poiras Yosef, because it was to nuk for the Padaske. Now he's saying, Mish Zucha Lecherev Hazeh. So he's saying, Mish Zucha Lecherev Hazeh, the ones who are Zeicha to this Cherev, this word, Zuch Leidach Lilchem in a Cherev, Shleyachte Oisa, Shleyata Oisa Lemin Oile Small. Shouldn't bend this word, no, not towards the right side, not towards the small. Shikalea Lasare Velo Yachte. Should be just aiming to the point and not miss the point. V'zeh yefsher ela b'chinas mishpat. That the only way I have to do it is only through mishpat. Why? Mishpat is through judgment. Why? Mishpat yamuda dem tzuuse. Mishpat is in the middle. Omet amtzoi. What is mishpat? So when you look in the mudim, right? You look chesed. The gvura will be chesed will be right and gvura will be left. So mishpat will be in the middle.
Which one is mishpat?
So which one will be mishpat?
Sure.
Huh?
Tiferes is considered mishpat?
In this concept that he's talking here.
So does that mean Yesod is also Pchina of mishpat? As well? Does that mean that Yesod is also Pchina of mishpat?
You saw it is lower, right?
Okay.
So we're saying through mishpat, Hainish Kalayim Kalay Zayin El Amokim Atzarich. He's aiming towards a point that he needs. Vayne Matale Min V'Leile Small El Emtze. So he's not. If Zeh B'Chinas Echalkel Devara B'Mishpat, he's B'Chalkel the word B'Mishpat. Zeh Kibul Yosef Es Abchoire Davke Mi Yaakov. That's why Yosef got the B'Choire through Yaakov Davke. Because Vanin Esatlach Ani Davke, she B'Chinas Mishpat. So Yaakov is Teferes. So Yaakov is the B'Chinas of Mishpat. וזה כחויג לישראל לבחינס בריס. כמו שכוסוף, Choik bis eirei som. Bis eirei som. Mishpat lelekai Yaakov. Heine. שצריך יוסף לקבל זויס אחרב ממכינס משפט כדאי שחלקל דבר במשפט. True, should be חלקל דבר במשפט. The only way is through חויק בסיירי שם. through משפט לקה יעקב. בזה משפטך למלך תן שמשיח יקבל מבחינס משפט. Yes, what is explaining?
No, I don't have it.
You have explanations?
No, it's the English. No.
What is he explaining there?
What's the question? What? Let's see. So it says like this. Misha Zachal Acher was there, right?
Right.
No. Yes.
What's the explanation in Torah?
Of which one? Of who? Explanation of what?
What is he explaining? What has to do? What has to do with mishpat?
Okay.
So he explained that mishpat.
Yes.
This is impossible without the attribute of mishpat. Mishpat is the central pillar. That is to strike with one's weapon at the precise point, inclining to neither right or left, but at its center. This corresponds to he orders his dvarav affairs with mishpat. That's what we just said. This is the reason Yosef received the rights of the firstborn, the Bechoira, specifically from Yaakov, as in Beis says, I have given you, because Yaakov is Mishpat. And this is a chok l'Yisrael, chok, which suggests Brit. Chok was placed on his flesh, therefore Mishpat of the Lord of Yaakov. Yosef must receive this sword from the aspect of Mishpat, so that he might order his words with Mishpat. O Lord, your Mishpatim. We already knew all this, right?
So he's basically not adding any more explanation than what we learned. So we're trying to understand this. What's the reason? Why is it only in order to get this cherif? He has to know. So we know that a sword has to, in order to win any battle, you have to aim to a certain point. Has to be precise. Has to be exactly to the point. Yes, but he's trying to some point here.
So the question is, why specifically mishpat? That's the question?
No, we understand why mishpat's explaining. He's explaining because if it has to be in the middle, but okay, let's continue. We'll maybe get more explanations as we continue with the Torah.
No, just what are we unclear about?
It's basically saying that in order we need beginner fin. We need the beginner of mishpat.
In order to get the beginning of tefillah?
We have tefillah. And then we have which tefillah has cherif, which cherif has two sides to itself. Why? Because tefillah has the shvach and the requests, and then we have this word already. That's where he starts. So we have to know how to battle, right? It has to be precise to the point. And that's the only way to do
mishpat. Okay.
So he's basically not explaining himself enough. What's the problem? But he's explaining we need mishpat.
Okay. He doesn't explain why you need mishpat. He just says you need mishpat because in the next paragraph he's going to start talking about how to get to mishpat.
Right.
He's not going to tell you why you need mishpat. But over here it says. Here. Okay. A person who guards the covenant, who's Shem and has perfected his faith in prayer, merits the sword of prayer. This weapon is so potent that the Gemara sees fit to issue a warning. It is not good for a tzaddik to punish others. By means of his prayers, the tzaddik has the power to mete out judgment, mishpat, against whoever he desires, and so must be careful. So basically, tefillas tzaddikim is very powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, he might use his power of prayer to bring about salvation for those, to bring Yeshua for those who are unworthy or unready, as was Avram's prayer for Yishmael, which Hashem bemoans daily. Hashem is upset every day about it says that in Gemara Sukkah and in the Zohar. In that case, his prayers are the cause of ruination, not rectification. What is needed, therefore, is mishpat, justice. in the sense of true and properly balanced judgment. So you have to be careful with the way that you properly.
Okay, so now we
use
got
your
it.
tefillahs. So basically, in order to so
So what he's saying is that it's referring to the power of tefillah of the tzaddik.
right.
That a tzaddik has to know not to pray for those who are not worth it to get the shefer. Because when you pray for them, you're basically ruining whatever has to be done.
Like you mentioned last week, the tzinoiras, the different.
Tzinoiras, yes. But what he was over here, yeah, you're missing the point sometimes. And what he's saying is he's referring it to Mashiach also.
Mm.
So when he refers over here to Mashiach also, there's if I may say, the Mashiach over here that he's referring is not always the Mashiach that we are talking about, the final Mashiach that will bring the redemption.
Mm.
It's the beginning of Mashiach that is in every person, and especially by tzaddikim. As one of the things we know from the Baal Shem Tov, yes? The Mashiach, every person has his level of Mashiach. And every person, as more he reveals his connection to Hashem, it's a part of going out of exile. Because his neshama goes out of exile. So that's the Mashiach that is in every person. Moharan is very busy with it a lot of the times. It's the Mashiach. Mashiach is not always referring to the physical person that will be named Mashiach. It's referring sometimes to the Mashiach that is in every person. So every person.
What influenced this type of thought? You know what I mean? Just it's very strange. This concept, you know, it's almost like. So at the end of the day, right? Like also there's this thing where people used to talk how Eretz Yisrael is a physical concept, right?
Right.
That it's also a Mila. There's a Mila called Eretz Yisrael.
Right.
But how do you say that when there's a physical place called Eretz Yisrael? There's a physical person called Mashiach. So what is all of this?
So it doesn't contradict. Meaning to say, yes, there's going to be the physical Mashiach, which will actually, when we reach that time, will actually be. We all will be out of exile. Everyone will be going out of exile. But there's still the exile that every person, let's call it a double exile. There's the exile which we are physically, each and every one of us is in exile. But here is the person that lives in the, let's say, U.S. And he is rich, he's filthy rich, and he has this, let's call it, I don't know, all these taivas and lamhaze, he lives in his palace, and he has maids the whole time, and he has nannies, and basically he doesn't put a finger in cold water. He was maybe born rich, I don't know, whatever the case it is. He even has his yacht on the water, his ship, and he has all his special chef, and he enjoys life, let's call it. And he even goes to shul, even donates and gets the he sits at the front, and everyone praises him the whole time. But is that person in exile or he's not in exile? Of course he is in exile. Why is he in exile? Because we call it exile. What is he missing exactly out of life? Out of physical life, he has everything, whatever he wants. If that's the case, let's say everything runs in the right direction, and always is in the right direction. He merits having everything his way. So, is he in exile, or let's say, although this person is, we are all in exile, but he himself is out of exile. No, he is in exile. Why is he in exile? So there's two reasons. Number one, you can't understand what real getting out of Golas would be. Not because we will all be having then yachts, we'll all be having then nannies and maids and whatever. That's not the reason. So there's actually, obviously, there's a level that we are going to reach at the point that when we go out of exile. So as we said, Torah Chadosh Mitzitaitzo, the Rambam says, Maimonides says, yes. Well, the Rambam says that Mashiach will be, everything is a mashal. It's not about all those concepts. The Rambam reviews it many times. Number one, he says it in Safach Malachim. He says it in Perish HaMishnayos. He also says it in Chulin and Chelik, I think in Agdome, which it says several times, repeats it in Rambam, Hichas Tshuva, and end of Hichas Tshuva. All those concepts of Olam Habe, all these physical pleasures, the ones who believe really that that's the way it's going to be, it's for children, he says, of small minds, and children, and women. Smart people understand it's a level of reaching height. We're getting out of our materialistics, desires, and we want to connect to Hashem. So self-understood, if we understand that the way the Rambam says it, and the way we all know that what's going to happen, Mashiach will be coming, right? So if that's a point, so obviously a person that reaches, it purifies himself, and he goes out and out of his materialistic limitations, as much he reaches a step out, he's a step out of Golus. But he's not a step out of Golus he still is going to be in Golus, because as long as we are in exile, as long as Mashiach hasn't come, as long as we are not zeichet to the special Techadosh B'tzitaitze, there's still Golus. But there's levels of redemption which the person himself goes out of it. He's redeeming his soul, is being redeemed out of exile. He reaches certain levels, certain heights, certain understandings, certain. He lives a different life. There's one of the famous stories of Reb Zusha, yes, Anapoli. So Reb Zusha there was a person came to the Maggid and was rich and asked him. He wants to understand this pasuk Shem Shavarch Al Toiv. The Emor says several times. A person has to thank Hashem the way you thank when it's good. You should also thank the Hashem when it's bad for you. So he couldn't understand that. I understand, okay, you should understand everything, but you should bless Hashem the same way.
For the bad as
for the bad as for the. How could it be? How could a person reach such a level? Every person, okay, you're not upset on Hashem, you accept it. You accept it with love, but it's still not the same. What's it, Shem? So the Maggid told him, walk into the shul, the Reb Zusha is sitting there. There's someone Reb Zusha, and ask him. So he walks into the shul, he asks about someone who's Reb Zusha. I showed him there was a person out of burly, was basically skin and bones, and all his clothes were dirt. He had no normal decent clothes and nothing. He looks at him. He was learning with such a chayes. He walks to him and asks Reb Zusha. The Maggid told me I should ask you what's the Hashem Shavarch Al Toiv, Kach Muvarch Al Ra. So he said. Reb Zusha replied right away. I don't know why he sent you to me. I also don't understand this Gemara. I can't understand how could it be bad for a person at all. Keshem Shavarch Al, so there's Toiv, there's Ra, and you have to think. I don't understand what Ra is all about. So Reb Zusha was at the level that was Ra wasn't existing in his level. That's the Keshem. What we call Ra, what we call Toiv was being equal. But it was only Reb Zusha. That's why we all still repeat that story. It's not something that happens to every person. It's a very high level. So we can say maybe Reb Zusha was out of Golus. He wasn't in Golus because whatever happened didn't speak to him. His problem was when he didn't understand the shtickle piece of Gemara as well as he wanted. That was his Golus maybe. Maybe Mashiach will come, you'll have a much deeper understanding in the Kabbalah concept. But it wasn't in the physical level at all. Okay, it's a little hard to explain that the only reason of mishpat is just because it shouldn't pray for those who don't deserve it. But let's continue to Dalit.
I can read some more of this if we want to.
No, it sounds like there's something more to it also. But maybe one explanation will be this. As Rasa said in the Akdama, there's many explanations to everything. And one explanation will be this level. Because he continues, through what the person zeichet the b'chin of mishpat, and it's tzedakah. Through tzedakah. Shall the tzedakah oiches the midas mishpat, the tzedakah oiches the midas mishpat, which causes tzidkas Hashem also in mishpatov. So he explains that tzidkas Hashem through tzedakah is zeichet to mishpat, which causes mishpat it's tzedakah beYaakov. So the pasuk equals mishpat and tzedakah. So through mishpat and tzedakah you will reach mishpat. Tzedakah da mishpat which causes and the kim shofet. He's lowering one and is hiring. One becomes poor and someone becomes rich. Yashpil, that person who gives tzedakah Shem Chasam Amoinei, he loses money out, he gives tzedakah. B'chinas Yorim, Shem Ha'ashir La'ani, he gives for the Ani becomes more richer. Through that, he's oiches of midas mishpat. That's through the judgment. Which is that's why a person needs to give tzedakah before tefillah. Should be able to have his words mishpat exactly, knowing exactly what he needs, and shouldn't miss the point. Why did Yaakov give the B'choil to Yosef? Shekil kol Yosef. Kilkos means he was feeding him. Mashal, what is the mashal? It's a metaphor for the Balabai. Shekil Yosef to Baisai. Kmoshikosev Chalkel Yosef is Oviv es Echov Lechem Lefi Ataf. Was feeding them Lefi Ataf. So he says Ataf is Koya Hataif El Adover. Hataif is a lotion of Dibber, talking. Lefi Ataf Hain Shegirat Philosophy Befiv Al Dei Tzokeh. Through the tzedakah, through the kalkel, through feeding, which is tzedakah, but tzedakah she also leYaakov shehi bechinas mishpat es achoyre. Through that he reached the level of achoyre she bechinas tefillah. Moshekosav ani nesati lecha Shem. Vani goes ani daike. That's ani. It goes to the first to Yaakov she bechinas mishpat. Through the bechinas mishpat, so Yosef was getting because he was giving tzedakah. So there's gila of tzedakah. At a lower level, we all know that one of the zgilas, the person when he davens shouldn't be suffering from machshavas zaris, he should give tzedakah. Through tzedakah, so what he refers over here is to a higher level. That tzedakah helps the tzaddik should reach the b'chin of mishpat. They should also know exactly what he has to do. Now, so over here it says, hey, the main point why the person having machshavas zaris, Heim aladei kilkala mishpat. Through his mekalka is destroying mishpat. Ke mishpat bechinas einin. So again, through tzedakah you reach mishpat, and when you destroy mishpat, then you are suffering from machshavas zaris. Why? Ke mishpat bechinas einin. Ke mishpat bechin of ein. Kmo shekosev ve'evoyu el ein mishpat. So mishpat was called ein mishpat. Mishpat was called ein.
Like Ein Yaakov.
Ein Yaakov, the eyesight. What is that? So beginnes Ein
Why would
Yaakov.
it say Einin? That doesn't mean eyes, does it? Or that's
Yes, Einen. Yes, it means Ein.
really mean eyes? Like not a naim? He decides to say the word Einin.
Einen means two eyes. I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. So. That's the shoichet is the aver eine chechomim. To a person when he takes shoichet is the aver. That's kilkul mishpat, right? How when you take bribe, then that's when the shoichet loses his true judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the bechinas machshava zara shebatfile. Shem and none of these are like clouds. The mechasin al einen. They are covering the ayin. Which causes sachoiso b'onelach. So the Gemara says in Brachos, there's a koiso b'onelach avoid tefillah. After the churban and prayers has a hard time going up. Why? It's like covered with the honor with the cloud. When the bechin of mishpat will be mesukin, which causes tziyim mishpat to father. The mishpat, so he says tziyim will be through mishpat will be redeemed. So the anonim, the clouds that are covering on the ayin, then will be zeicha ki ayin ba'ayin yiri b'shiv Hashem tzion. So eye to eye will be seeing when Hashem will return to tzion. Now we understand why will be poiris ala yoyin. So he was explaining before that poiris is nukva the karkas, the padaske, the being tofresh pave of oiris, it's amshoche. So he was saying that tzaddik needs to reach the point of mishpat in order, yes, when he has the bechinas of cherev and he's mishpat, and the only way to reach to mishpat through tzedakah. But if it doesn't have tzedakah, then what happens when there is shoichet instead of tzedakah? When you're not using it in the right way, you're mekalkel the mishpat. What happens then? then mishpat is ayin, then we ruin the mishpat, then when it turns into a cloud that covers the ayin, but la'asir would be tziyam mishpat pada, and the anonim, which are the clouds that are covering on the ayin, will be redeemed then. That means which, yes? Now he's saying, every person has to need kavanah b'tefillah.
What was the last piece? So if he doesn't give tzedakah, then there's going to be kilkul and mishpat, and therefore
he doesn't really say that if you don't give tzedakah, it's a kilkul and mishpat.
Okay, so
but he's saying
you're zoichet to mishpat
yes,
through
so
tzedakah.
tzedakah you're zoichet to mishpat. But what happens when a person has? Why does a person have machshava zaris, which is also ruining tefillah? It's through kilkul and mishpat. So he explained that mishpat is ayin Yaakov. Yes, kilkul mishpat. The person can kilkul ayin. So he explains the sheikh the aver ein chachamim.
Hello. Can I help you?
So he says sheikh the aver chachamim b'chim masham zaris. So he says that there is a problem. There is a cloud covering, which doesn't allow the tefillah to pass up. Yeah, right. We was explaining it, but la'asid will be the beginning of mishpat. Will be mesuk in the beginning of mishpat. Then will be tziyam mishpat tepade. Through mishpat will tziyam be redeemed, and then the anonim, the clouds, will be removed.
How? Through tzedakah? Through what?
Through mishpat.
Through mishpat. Okay. Or through getting or is it?
Right. Ka'ayin ba'ayin yiru b'shiv Hashem tzion. We through eyes will see when the Hashem will return to tzion, and that's why Yosef is being called Ben Poides Alei Oyen. Why? Because he was having Poides will be Alei Oyen. His tefillah was going through because it wasn't covered. So it didn't have these clouds covering the oil.
Or some
So basically what he's saying is like this. Let's understand what we do understand. We do understand is there's a concept that a tzaddik needs mishpat. That's we understand. Through mishpat, how does he zeichet to mishpat? Through tzedakah. But you can ruin mishpat through shoichet, bribery, which it doesn't explain what happens, why. And he also says that the mishpat, that in today's times, there's a sakoise ba'analach, it's being covered. The prayers can't go up because it's covered with a cloud. But when Mashiach will come, one of the things that will happen, all the clouds will be removed. So he says that there's a problem of the eye. The eye can't see the other eye. Ayin ba'ayin yiru b'shiv Hashem tzion. So there's so mishpat is called ayin mishpat, ein Yaakov. But there's sometimes when the mishpat is being covered, but there's times that the mishpat is stronger. It's overpowering. It's a strong mishpat. When it's a small, there's bigger levels. It says the Mashiach will come, then will be the final. But even now, Yosef was zeichet to that. So Yosef was having that bechin of mishpat of ayin. That's why it was called Ben Poiras Ale Oyin. So he was having Poiras, which is top fresh payvav, all the levels, was having it. Now, let's come to the point. So a person when he davens, in order, because he doesn't have this mishpat, so he needs to be mechavan, he needs to have kavanah betfillah, shekasher atzma letzadikim shebedar. He should connect himself to the tzadik shebedar. Why? He called tzadik shebedar bechinas Moshe Mashiach. So every tzadik bedar is bechinas of Moshe, which Moshe is Mashiach, right? We saw in the Gemara, the tzaddikim were calling each of the others with the name Moshe. The Gemara says, Moshe Shapik Amris. Moshe, you're saying good. So it wasn't named Moshe, but he calls him Moshe. And Moshe Zeh is Bechinas Mashiach. That Moshe is the Bechin of Mashiach. Moshe Kosov At Kiyova Shiloi do Moshe Mashiach. It goes to the Zohar. The Zohar says Moshe will be Mashiach. So Moshe is the Bechin of Mashiach. Tefillah Shekalech Mispalel. Every tefillah that a person is davening, he bechinas Eiver Ma'Mashchina. Every prayer is a bechin of Eiver Shem Eiver Mishkan. Wa'ashe'ein shum echad mi'Yisrael yochel ha'olah she'yofa b'shofa kol chad adicht elu Moshe b'chit. None, every yid, if he wants to enter deeper and deeper, it's only through, like level after level, to his place, only through Moshe. That's the reason why a person has to be mekash all the tefillahs to the tzaddik ador. Betzal, when they finished making the mishkan, all brought the mishkan to Moshe. Moshe was the only one. He was the one who was able to make a kohen mishleim to build up the mishkan. But Yaakov Moshe is a mishkan. So he's saying that every tefillah is like an aver of the mishkan. It's like one of the organs of the mishkan, right? But in order the mishkan should be complete and should be built up, is only through Moshe, which Moshe, he's the one who's building up all those. So he says, every Torah the person learns to do is color oisias. All those oisias, hem nitzoytze neshamas. These are sparks of neshamas. When it's lapshim, betoich tefillah.
Also, Shadam lomed lishmor ve'la'asot. So it means
if you learn Torah, in order to do what you learn, not learning it just for wisdom. The kol oisias are nitzoytzes neshamas. All the oisias are nitzoytzes from neshamas. V'im nislapshim b'toich ha'tfilah. V'nischatshim sham b'bchinas iber.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that basically you should try to you shouldn't learn Torah unless you plan to keep it, or what?
That's not exactly, because it says means a person should learn anyway. Because the lights of the Torah will get a person to do tshuva. So a person should just continue learning, regardless. And the light of Torah is strong enough. But he's saying that when Torah is learned the way it's supposed to, what happens is there's a concept being called that the called is a b'chin of ibur neshama. Ibur means that, let's say there is a person. Ibur is it's like a woman is pregnant. So she is herself, and then there's somebody else is all of a sudden in her, right? So there's something called a person has a neshama, and then there's the ibur neshama. Although he has his own neshama, there's another neshama that gets dressed into himself. And you can see it also in a way that helps the person. You can see Shabbos, yes? Shabbos, every person has a neshama inside. There's an extra spirit to a person in Shabbos. Shabbos, a person is in a different level. Shabbos, there's certain things that, as you see, the Moharan actually the past week by Yaakov is talking about it. That Shabbos, you can see a person has a different. Let's say a person will be struggling in the weekdays more with learning and davening, and Shabbos it will be a little easier, because Shabbos you're not working with the lamates malachas. During the week you have all these struggles because you have to elevate the lamates malachas. Everybody explains over there. But over here, there's 39 jobs, ways of doing job.
Who's this Moharan? Who is he again?
Nachum of Chernobyl.
Ah, oh, okay. No.
So
the Chernobyl.
yes.
Somebody actually told me. Somebody said, all Hasidus nowadays, except for Chabad and Breslov, there's no Hasidus nowadays that's not connected somehow to Chernobyl. What do you say about that?
I don't know.
Is that all the Hasidus all the Rebbes that started to sprout about in that area were somehow connected to Chernobyl? No, you never heard this before.
I don't know. But whatever it is. So no, I'm just repeating what I happen to be seeing. So you can see Shabbos a different bechina, right? Whatever. There's something called neshama. Say there's certain concepts. So he's saying when a person learns Torah, all the Torah is is some kind of nitzotzim from the shamas, sparks of the shamas. When a person davens, they're being mislabish in the words of his davening. That's maybe the reason why sometimes when a person davens the right way, he feels a certain chayas, which is the Torah they learn that's being mislabish in this tefillah that he davens. When it's chaschim shabbat b'chinas ibir, so he brings in the segraik muve b'gegulim, sefer gegulim, shekal neshamas bo b'sech malchus b'chinas ibir v'nes chaschim sham. All the shamas come with tich malchus. Malchus is bad, dibber, and they bring the chadash. So zeu hashemayim mesap.
What is this Gilgulim? I'm sorry.
The sefer gegulim.
By who?
Arizal. Or Rav Chaim Betal.
Chaim Betal.
So what is a book on
Yeah.
reincarnation? What? It's a
Sefer Gilgulim is not
Not
by English.
regular.
Is it by English also? I didn't see.
No, it's not. But it's not a typical reincarnations. We're not talking about he's a gilgul of that. It's the concepts of gilgulim. So what he's saying is that there's also that the neshamas, the tzutzim of neshamas, the sparks are being mislabish into the tefillah, and there Shemayis HaPekohet Kere HaTorah Shu Ish Emayim B'chinas HaNeshamas in Boim B'Seich HaTefillah, it comes into the tefillah Shem B'chinas Kavod Kail Kmo Shekosuf Simu Kavod Tilosoi B'chinas V'Tilosi Echtam Loch, which is also the B'china of tefillah. Yes, Echtam Loch, we saw the Vanashama im HaTefillah Nikroim HaNikras Kavod. The neshama together with tefillah, then they reach the level of kavod. Why is it kavod? Hashem shimal beshes oisanu. Why a levush, a dress, is called kavod? Why? Because it dresses us. It makes us look right. When a person wants to appear to a certain affair, he will dress nice. So actually, the dress gives glory to the person. Kavod. So kavod will be when the tefillah is together with the neshama. And that's what simi kavod tehilah. Tehilah already we know that's the beginning of tehillah. That's tefillah. Kavod is the one of being dressed with the neshama. Rabbi Yochanan was calling his clothes the ones who are being mechabadim. Well, there's an nikra kavod kail. That's what he says. Hashemayim misaprim kavod kail. What's Hashemayim misaprim kavod kail? That's Torah. What's Torah is a combination of Shemayim. Shemayim is Eish Imayim, combination of two words. What is Eish? So he's saying that's Kavod Kail is the Torah. The neshama that come into the tefillah. So so everyone is adding light to the other. Why? Hanashamas meiris la tefillah b'chinas alos mayin nikvin. The neshama is mayer to the tefillah through b'chinas v'malayim. But tefillah meira nashama is b'chinas kedishim. Shemechadeshes oisam b'chinas ibir. Okay, this
is some deep Kabbalah.
Yeah, deep Kabbalah. But he's basically saying that it's like this. It's so.
What is my nukvin?
So my nukvin is when my nukvin is tefillah. Tefillah is when a person davens. What happens? He's trying to elevate himself to Hashem. So we are nukvim. We are called nukvim, recipients, and we are trying to elevate ourselves towards up. So that's called mayin nukvin. So when we daven, tefillah is called mayin nukvin. Water coming from the bottom, it tries to reach its way up. We are trying to reach our ways up. So he's saying that the neshamas, the Torah that we learned, is mayer. It helps by tefillah. It's mayer to the tefillah. It makes the tefillah to a special light, gives it energy, it helps it elevate. And tefillah has the mailer. The tefillah adds to the neshama also. B'chinas ibir. Being mechadish. Then what happens? What happens to a spark? Yes. When it gets in the b'chin of a ibir, it's something new, right? When a new child is being hatched, is that it's a b'chin of it's something new. It's mechadish something. So I'm not exactly understanding. So he said that there's two levels. So everyone gives for the others. So the neshama gives for the tefillah, which helps elevate the tefillah. But the tefillah is also giving for the neshama. In other words, they're both gaining. They're both gaining from this connection. That's the way I understand it. There's sometimes when both are gaining. It's not only one-sided. It's basically saying the neshama, the oisis atayre, the netzoitz neshama, the sparks, they have more out of being connected to the tefillah than when they are just godly sparks. Because they reach something new that they didn't reach beforehand.
Okay.
So when they help tefillah, he's also gaining. Because he's reaching a new level what it didn't have beforehand. When it was just a spark, when it was just Torah, but when it reaches through tefillah, he reaches a higher level. There's something else that he's reached. So tefillah is gaining from getting this light, and he is also gaining from going into a new concept, changing from where it was just in the tzutz and neshamas, and now is being melubish, and he's all of a sudden getting into a bechin of kovet, which is a levush, which is then it's shemaim esaprim kuwait kail. That's what he's saying. I'll give an example. So, now these neshamas, which is melubish in the tefillah, which is being brought afterwards to the tzaddik of the bedar, the rayas that are being brought to you, the friendships. So what he's saying is that the bechina, there's a bechina, the tzaddik when he davens, he's mala with his prayers, all the tefillahs. So when everyone, his tefillah is so strong, all the tefillahs are being, it's like, let's give a physical explanation. Let's say you want to, there's water, right? Try to break a way through, but there's a wall blocking it. So there's all kind of streams coming, but they're not strong enough. Here comes this main stream with such a power, it breaks through its way, and all of a sudden everyone connects to it. All the waters now could just run through the crack that it broke through. So let's give it, it's not exactly an explanation, but let's give it, it's a simple metaphor to understand a little bit. The tzaddik, when he davens, so all the neshamas, because he's the tzaddik adar, all the neshamas are connected, especially when you have kavanah, when you want to connect yourself to the tzaddik shebadar, so all the tefillahs are basically catching up into his wagon. And when his tefillah goes up, he has the mishpat, he has all those that's needed, right? So it really reaches the way up, the way it should be. But he's saying, in what level does it reach the tzaddik? Reaches the tzaddik when there's the neshama, there's the Torah, and then there's the tzitz neshamas, the sparks, and the sparks are really getting dressed up into the tefillah. Then this tefillah reaches the tzaddik, and that the tzaddik brings up.
This is